Hello, I'm Esther Giulio. It's Tuesday, December 21st. This is Africa 54.
Africa 54 takes a closer look at Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema's first 100 days in office. A Ugandan man rescued from an abusive home becomes a foster dad in the United States. And tips on how to handle holiday stress and preparing for a new year.
December marks the first 100 days of Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema. Critics say many of his promises of a better Zambia are still unfulfilled. The Southern African nation is currently grappling with massive debt, corruption, a struggling economy, and a deeply divided public. Daniel Tonga has more in this report from Lusaka.
The new dawn is a catchword for Zambia's 7th president, Hakainde Hichilema. He cast his election as a fresh start for a country that went through some very turbulent economic times under the leadership of his predecessor, Edgar Lungu. Since taking office, the new president promised to transform Zambia's economy and bring change. However, after 100 days in office, the country is still facing an array of convulsing challenges.
I can summarize the 100 days basically as a disastrous journey for the UPND in the first 100 days that they've been in office. Why? Because they have failed to give a clear direction on how they can fulfill the promises they made. Clear promises of, for example, free education.
How to practically deliver in a country so divided is proving to be a huge task. Observers say corruption persists, the country faces huge economic debt, and so too is the high cost of living that has thrown many people in poverty. For critics, the president is yet to turn things around.
The only economic policy that we've heard about so far is about putting the country on an IMF program and getting an IMF loan. Now, putting the country on an IMF program can never be considered as an overriding economic agenda for a country. Getting a loan is a means to achieving an agenda. So then the question becomes, what is the overriding economic agenda? And my take is that they don't seem to have any.
So far, Hichilema's biggest achievement is the restoration of freedom of speech, lawlessness, and respect for human rights.
Let us be clear. When, for instance, you say you want to improve education, it doesn't mean that the moment you go into government, that very month education will change. You have a long history that you have to deal with. So it's progressive. When we talk of free education, you have to build and health care. You have to build the resource base and progressively arrive at providing for free education for those who need it.
On the streets, people have mixed feelings about Hakainde's 100 days in office and his government.
He's going to deliver, but my prayer, my earnest prayer is that the foreign governments who have put up this global foreign policy over us Africans should allow our president to bring that development to us.
We do not see that difference because the policies that he's fostering, those are the policies that we have seen before and they have failed.
After 100 days, the remaining years will require tough decisions for Hakainde Hichilema. People are looking at the new administration to resolve the energy crisis, deep-rooted corruption, foreign debt, poverty, and ethnic divisions.
In trying to establish whether he has the capacity to take us out of this debt crisis and the poverty levels that have been exacerbating in this country, would be a matter of relying on either the promise or his inaugural speech.
Every new president in the past has made promises, but very little, if anything, has been achieved. Trust in government is at all-time low. Critics say if President Hichilema administration does not achieve much, the resulting economic crisis the country faces will stall the economic recovery so desired by the majority. Daniel Tonga, VOA News, Lusaka.
Brussels is pushing to lift an inefficient travel ban on southern African states over the Omicron variant, but European Union's nations are reluctant to drop it, the EU's Commissioner for Justice, Didier Reynders, told Reuters on Tuesday. In late November, EU states agreed to impose travel curbs on 7 southern African countries after they reported several cases of the Omicron variant. Reynders says the ban had become inefficient because the EU had other tools, including quarantines and tests, to manage the flow of travelers from countries with several Omicron cases. Additionally, the spread of the variant to many other countries around the world, including EU states, has further weakened the rationale for that measure. A South African court on Tuesday has granted former President Jacob Zuma leave to appeal against a ruling that he must return to prison after being released in September on medical parole. Zuma, 79, was sentenced in June to 15 months in prison for contempt of court after ignoring instructions to participate in a corruption inquiry. He handed himself in to begin his sentence on July 7th, triggering some of the worst violence South Africa had seen in years. Anger from supporters snowballed into broader outrage over hardship and inequalities that persist 27 years after the end of apartheid. He began medical parole in September, but earlier this month, South Africa's High Court ordered that decision void and that he should return to jail. A boat accident off the coast of northeastern Madagascar has killed at least 19 people. Searches are underway to locate the 66 passengers who remained unaccounted for, according to the country's maritime agency. The vessel, a cargo ship that was not authorized to transport people, was overloaded and water flooded the engine, according to the director of operations at the Maritime and River Port Agency, Mame Randrianavone. Meanwhile, a Madagascan minister was one of the 2 survivors who swam some 12 hours to shore Tuesday after their helicopter crashed on its way to inspect the site of the boat accident. Serge Gale, Madagascar's Secretary of State for Police, and a fellow policeman reached land in the seaside town of Mahambo separately on Tuesday morning, apparently after ejecting themselves from the helicopter, according to the Port Authority chief. There were 130 passengers on board the boat traveling from Antanambe to Swanirana Ivongo, and 45 were found alive. United Nations Human Rights spokesperson Liz Throsso says the office has received 13 allegations of rape and gang rape by Sudanese security forces during protests in Sudan on Sunday. The demonstration drew hundreds of thousands of people to Khartoum to protest against a military coup on October 25th and a November 21st agreement to reinstate the Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok. Demonstrators converged on the presidential palace, where they attempted a sit-in before being dispersed after sundown. Sudanese security forces, reached by Reuters, did not immediately respond to a request for comment. In Central Africa, officials say a police officer and at least 2 civilians were killed during protests in the city of Goma in eastern Congo on Monday over worsening security. Large rocks littered a street where crowds of demonstrators protested against regional violence and what they believe is the imminent arrival of security forces from neighboring Rwanda to quell unrest. The government denies Rwandan forces are coming to help. Many in Goma are fed up with a surge in attacks by various armed groups in North Kivu and Ituri provinces that has led authorities to declare a state of siege despite the presence of the army and a United Nations peacekeeping mission. Congo has also launched a joint military operation with Uganda, under which at least 1,700 Ugandan troops have crossed into eastern Congo in recent weeks to battle the Allied Democratic Forces, a rebel group allied with Islamic State. Since the start of the COVID pandemic, the streets of Sao Paulo have become home to thousands of Brazilians who have lost everything. Homelessness is not new to Brazil's biggest, most prosperous and most important city. According to government statistics, It had jumped by 50% in 5 years preceding 2019. But as Jan Bouchard reports from Sao Paulo, the problem has worsened since then.
It feels like home, says Tairine de Souza, the homeless mother of two who lives under this bridge in São Paulo. De Souza lives here with 12 other people who, like her, found life on the streets is the only way to survive.
Look, no one chooses to live on the street. No one chooses. If people are living on the street, it's because they've gone through something or they're going through something to get to this point.
De Souza is part of a different profile of homeless people. Until a decade ago, the homeless population of big cities was mostly made up of men with drug and alcohol problems. With the economic crisis deepening the country, more and more people like her are turning to the streets.
The homeless population has increased by more than 100%. With the pandemic, people lost their homes and the government did not provide housing assistance. With the recession and unemployment and inflation, the number of homeless people grew by a lot.
Advocate Robson Mendonça knows it well. Once homeless, he has been distributing food to the poor in downtown São Paulo every day for more than 20 years. The last homeless population census was carried out in 2019 and counted almost 25,000 people living on the streets. But those figures are now way out of date, says Mendonça.
60,000 people are living in total vulnerability on the streets in São Paulo today.
The increase in the homeless population in Brazil's largest city reflects the economic crisis that has befallen the country in the last decade. The coronavirus pandemic worsened a dire economic situation, one that is a key issue in the next presidential elections, set to be held next October. In 2018, Jair Bolsonaro was elected on promises of ending corruption. In the past 3 years, inflation has soared, unemployment has continued to run at 13%, and the average Brazilian income has fallen by 10%. Poverty weighs on the minds of many ahead of the poll.
The pandemic came. I worked in recycling. The stores closed. I couldn't work.
Lidiane Silva, like millions of Brazilians, could not bear the crisis. Without a job and money, she came to the door of the São Paulo Cathedral, where she now makes her home.
Democracy is at risk with inequality of this size.
Monsignor Giulio Lancelotti has been dedicating his life to the homeless population for over 4 decades. He has only seen the situation get worse and fears for the future.
We have to resist in a fight we are losing, and we're going to lose more. More people will die, more people will go to live on the streets. It will increase, but we are not going to stop fighting.
Lacking government assistance, many of the homeless now look for help from people like Father Giulio, Robson Mendonça, and private charities. Their work among the poorest of the poor is only getting bigger. Jan Bouchard for VOA News, São Paulo.
Let us know what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, we'll hear from an expert on how to handle holiday stress and prepare for the new year. But first, Heidi Adams tells us what's on tap for Wednesday's Straight Talk Africa.
Join me on the next Straight Talk Africa as we continue our review of the news from Africa in 2021. We'll bring you the best of our interviews from this year, from a moment of African camaraderie at the Tokyo Olympics, men and mental health, and what Africa's young people really want. We'll look back at unfiltered moments and conversations with some of our guests in 2021. Join me, Heidi Adams, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
With the number of new reported coronavirus cases double what they were 2 months ago, and with the highly transmissible Omicron variant accounting for nearly 3/4 of cases in the United States. President Joe Biden is scheduled to give an address Tuesday highlighting the importance of COVID-19 vaccinations and new steps his government is taking to combat the pandemic. The White House says that Biden is expected to announce the implementation of pop-up vaccination clinics and new federal testing sites in different areas of the country, as well as an effort to distribute 500 million at-home rapid tests to American homes beginning in January. The new initiatives are to include helping care for COVID-19 patients with the prepositioning of supplies such as ventilators, in N95 masks, gloves and gowns to protect medical workers. The White House also says the government is also expected to deploy 1,000 military medical personnel to hospitals. It's called the most wonderful time of the year. The holiday season is in full swing and a busy time for celebrations. It is also a moment to assess one's life and embrace resolutions for the new year. But for some people, the holiday season can be stressful or lonely. According to the American Psychological Association, 69% of people are stressed by the feeling of having a lack of time and money. In addition, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought with it a new set of challenges, increasing the anxiety for many. For more insight on handling holiday stress, Africa 54 health correspondent Linord Moudou spoke with educator and motivational speaker Omekongo Dibinga.
COVID for me, it's spelled COVID, and to me it stands for continue on, victory is determined. Continue on, victory is determined. The fact of the matter is, a little over 100 years ago, we had a flu epidemic there as well, 1918. After that came the roaring 20s, where economically society started to come back in the United States and in other places. And I believe that we're heading in that direction, but we have to stay positive. We have to do everything possible to continue to fight this disease by preserving our health, making sure when we get access to vaccines, we're taking advantage of them. But I believe that we are going to get on the other side of this if we believe that we are all in this together and we continue to support one another wherever we are in society. We are going to be victorious. And if we don't have that mentality, we already lost.
What would you say is the first step towards developing a new you in the new year?
You can't commit to bringing the old you into the new year. Unless there are some things that the older you has done that has been working, but negativity, the negative thoughts, the bad relationship, the tragedies over the people that we've lost. We have lost people, but they've left things in us that we can use to go forward. So with the new year, you have to commit to doing things differently. Make a list of the things that worked for you in 2021 and the things that didn't work, and focus on bringing the things that worked for you into 2022.
What are the things that people should prioritize?
First thing you need to prioritize is yourself. Self-care is the best care, and you have to focus on loving yourself and affirming yourself. Nobody is going to love you and affirm you the way that you will do for yourself. Stop looking for affirmation in other people of you and start working on affirming yourself. Number one, you wake up, count your blessings to be able to be alive and breathe in the air. Tell yourself that you're beautiful. Tell yourself that you love yourself. Tell yourself that you believe in yourself. Tell yourself that you are proud of yourself. Only you can complete yourself.
What are concrete examples that can help develop a new you in 2022?
Don't get caught up in making New Year's resolutions. The majority of the people do not follow through with the New Year's resolutions. What you should start doing is saying, I'm just going to make one small change. If you're somebody who's a smoker and you're smoking 2 packs a day, maybe you're going down to 1.5. If you're somebody who consumes negative things 8 hours a day on social media, maybe you drop it down to 7. When people start saying, cold turkey, oh, I'm going to quit smoking, boom, and it doesn't happen within the first 2 or 3 weeks, people get frustrated, and then they get depressed, and then they go right back to where they started because they feel like it's not possible. We need, just like we take one step a day when we're moving forward, we need to take one step a day on our goals. And if you commit to doing it that way, it's not a New Year's resolution, it's a new you lifestyle. We're talking about lifestyle changes so you can not only add years to your life, but add life to your years.
A lot of people fail at their New Year's resolution. I'm one such person. Why does it happen?
We have unrealistic expectations. We think that it's going to happen automatically. We think just because of a change of a clock that all of a sudden our habits are going to change. And I like what Stephen Covey said, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You cannot talk your way out of a problem that you behaved your way into. Change of behaviors one day at a time. Don't focus on this long-term goal. Focus on lifestyle. Like when I talk about being happy, happiness isn't a goal. Happiness is a lifestyle. You have to choose the things every single day in those moments that are going to make you whole. And you have to accept the setbacks. Remember that a setback is set up for a comeback, as Willie Jolly says. That's not the end of the road. It's a bend in the road because you have a longer-term process in your mind. So you have to tell yourself every single day, F-A-I-L, fail, all it stands for is first attempt in learning. We come from a people who fought across our entire continent for our freedom. They didn't get the freedom on the first fight, on the first protest. They came and they fought and they fought and they fought until we can enjoy the freedoms that many of us enjoy today. And that's the type of mentality it's going to take over our lives, take control of our lives, and be able to live a new us in the new year.
As we leave 2021, moving into 2022, what are the major takeaways for you?
Number one, you have to appreciate the people around you. I talked earlier about not waiting for people to show you love, but it doesn't mean you can't show them love. Number two, appreciate your health. You may not feel like you're in the best shape. You may feel like you may have a medical condition. But if you are still here, it means your fight is not over. Give yourselves affirmations every single day, things that you can tell yourself. I'll give you one right now that people can use. And it's very simple. There can only be one me. There was no me before me. There will be no me after me. And since I'm the only me that the world will see, I will be the best me that I can be.
Dr. Omekongo Dibinga, thank you so much. That was wonderful. Thank you. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. Happy New Year.
I totally agree with that. That was Africa 54 Health Correspondent Linord Moudou speaking to educator and motivational speaker Omekongo Dibinga. At age 10, Peter Mutabasi left an abusive home to fend for himself on the streets of Kampala. A stranger's kindness led to schooling and new opportunities abroad. Now he's a foster father in the United States to other children who have had hard lives. He explains in this self-narrated report produced by VOA's Betty Ayub.
Yeah? Okay, you put the cup down. You want a cookie?
No. Yes.
My name is Peter Mutabasi, born in Uganda. I'm a dad of 4, and I live here in Charlotte, North Carolina. My dream was to be a dad. Like, I always wanted to be a dad. And I think at 25, it didn't happen. At 30, it didn't happen. At 35, it didn't happen. So at 40, I was like, you know what? I can be dad, and I don't have to be the traditional dad. So I became a foster parent in the state of Oklahoma. And I don't think they had any single men wanting to be foster parents. So my first kid was white, and I was shocked, like, wait a minute. The kid doesn't look like me, you know. Little did I know, just when it comes to abuse, when it comes to neglect, kids are affected the same way. And so that really opened for me to know, like, hey, I'm here to advocate for every child.
That say my name and Cole's name, and this only say my name.
Being a biracial family, it's really cool to see and to change the narratives that, yes, they don't look like me, but they are my family.
So the day I met Peter, I walked into his house and I was pretty hungry, so I went into the kitchen. I grabbed some Pop-Tarts, I think. Yeah, it was Pop-Tarts. And then I said, can I call on Dad? And he said, no, not for now. And I said, okay, Dad. So
he knew I'll be his dad before I even thought about it, before I even got there. My Anthony, my son, he was adopted for 9 years, and the family that had adopted him had dropped him at the hospital, and they had gone to the county to sign off their parental rights. And I think once I had that story, I think it went back to my time as a 10, 11-year-old, that you had nowhere to go, that you're helpless, unwanted, not knowing what your future is. And there was a kid in front of me who just reminded me of myself. You know, 2 years later, I was able to adopt him as my son.
If you ever meet Peter, one of the first things you know is how loving, kind, genuine, and what a heart he has for less privileged, for kids from hard places, for making a difference for these kids and making a difference in their lives. And he'll tell you part of his story because someone made a difference in his life.
This is me. I don't know. I look like I had not eaten for days.
You know, grew up really poor. It wasn't just my family that was poor, but everyone around me was poor. You know, life was just miserable. And my dad, he was just abusive, verbally, physically, and in any shape, form you could think of. So at the age of 10, I decided that, look, life is so miserable here. I would rather die in the hands of someone else than die in the hands of my own dad. So I went to the bus station and I asked the lady, hey, which bus goes the farthest, you know? And I ended up in Kampala, and I didn't know where I was going, but in some way I was just running away from the misery at home.
This is my favorite picture. This is my both parents, so my mom and my dad.
As street kids, we knew how to survive. We knew how to steal food. So when I saw this man, I think I wanted to steal food from him. I wanted to take something, you know? So when I tried to get food from him, I was like, hey, what's your name? You know, no one had ever asked my name, but he stopped to ask me, what's your name? And give me food. For the very first time, someone saw the best in me that nobody had seen in me, that he saw potential at my lowest. He saw a human being, sometimes where I didn't feel I was human to the same level as everyone else, that he saw a kid who had a potential, that he was willing to say, you know what, I want to invest in you. I want to do something for you. And that's what changed my life.
My dad's story really helps me to connect with him better because I was able to connect with him on what we had both gone through, and I realized that me and him, we've both gone through a lot. So that really helps me to connect with him.
But as much as I'm helping them through their trauma, that they are helping me through my own trauma. So that's a joy, that it's not always me giving, but also benefiting as a dad, and they teach me so much about myself as well.
The remarkable story of Peter from where he came from is that he stepped out and said, I'm going to change this life. And then now he's going to change another and another. And what's really going to be remarkable is all those kids that he's touched, they're going to go out and change other people's lives. And so the impact of one is going to be spread out over the years. It's going to be amazing.
Indeed, a very great story, very inspirational. We can all be better. We can do better. We can turn our pain to joy. We can help other people. Give them a smile today. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.